Hare Krishna. Okay, looks like we are online. Just a few more seconds. Okay, welcome everyone. Hare Krishna, welcome to a reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, to where we're going to continue reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So, first of all, welcome to Iskcon Dublin live stream. Today we are restarting the reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, or Bhagavata Purana, which we started some time ago, but in this format we started in Kartik 2018. And then, due to circumstances, we stopped in the middle of December 2019. We know what happened in between, the seating, and also we had our Govindas renovating, so we were a little busy with projects. So yeah, welcome everyone back. So we will continue now every Monday and Tuesday from 6 p.m. probably till 7, and we'll see how it goes. I would like to hear your comments, your replies on, is this a good time? This a good format? Would you like to join me on Zoom so we can see each other, or I can see you? Let me know if you can hear me properly and everything. So yeah, any feedback, welcome. Yeah, so let's get into the Bhagavatam readings. That's why we're here for. First of all, before I start, we're gonna continue where we left off, which was we made it in more than a year. We made it to fourth canto. So we now the third chapter of fourth canto. I actually had to look it up. It was I had to look it up in our archives. So it was many weeks ago. Nonetheless, it's better late than never to restart. Let's just refresh where we left off, because I'll just continue where I left off. I'm not gonna start reading again from the first canto or from the fourth canto, but I'll just recap just the story, just so you know where we're gonna continue. So I'm just gonna read from this book, which is the summary study of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm just gonna read what actually is happening. It's just a short description of where we are. So Shiva and Sati, that's what we are, who are we dealing with more specifically. So Shiva was happily married to Sati, the daughter of Daksha. When Daksha had an altercation with Shiva, or some dispute, his harsh reaction and impulsive words triggered a chain of unsavory events. The growing animosity culminated in the suicide of Sati and decapitation of Daksha. The episode is a striking reminder of the misfortune that occurs from impulsive, insensitive, and offensive behavior. So, hearing that Sati, the daughter of Daksha, and Prasuti had dramatically terminated her own life, Vidura requested an elaboration. Maitreya thus narrated the incident over several chapters. So Maitreya is the sage who Vidura approached to speak about these spiritual topics, to instruct him Actually, it's Maitreya is narrating Srimad Bhagavatam to Vidura. Once a great sacrifice was organized by the leaders of universal creation, namely Marichi, Daksha and Vashishta. When Daksha entered the arena, everyone stood up in respect except Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Brahma, who was his father, did offer a welcome, but Daksha was aghast that Shiva had completely neglected to acknowledge him. Misunderstanding Shiva's yogic trance as intentional disrespect, Daksha hurled arrows of insults and criticized his son-in-law's character, lifestyle, and habits. He cursed Shiva to lose his share of the sacrificial oblations and angrily returned home. Outraged by Daksha's behavior, Nandishvara, one of Shiva's associates, issued 3 curses in retaliation. He declared that those who side with Daksha will lose their transcendental knowledge, that Daksha will receive the head of a goat, and that hereditary brahmanas who practice religion simply out of ritual will perpetually return to this material world. Infuriated by Nandishvara's words, Bhrigu, a supporter of Daksha, counter-cursed the followers of Shiva to be diverted from Vedic principles and become atheistic in their outlook. Witnessing this angry exchange of curses, Shiva left the sacrificial arena in disgust, wanting to avoid any further unrest. Despite the absence of Shiva and Daksha, the 1,000-year sacrifice continued to conclusion. So now this is the introduction, and we are now in the 3rd chapter, when there is a talk between Shiva and Sati, I think. Yeah. So just like little what we're reading exactly here in these chapters. Strained relationships between the 2 individuals continued, but Brahma nevertheless appointed Daksha as the chief progenitor, or Prajapati. Intoxicated by pride, Daksha performed a series of elaborate sacrifices attended by many eminent personalities, but purposely neglected to invite or acknowledge Shiva. On one occasion, Daksha's daughter Sati developed a desire to attend the sacrifice. She approached her husband, Shiva, who discouraged her from attending, foreseeing that Daksha would be neglectful and inimical due to her connection with him. He repeatedly warned Sati not to go and predicted that if she did, the ramifications would be severe. Though confused and unsure, Sati decided to attend anyway. Okay, so let's get into. You have it on the screen. I'm gonna scroll down as I read, so you can follow. This is then best practice. We can watch it on the screen. So let's get in. It's the Canto 4, called Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 1, Genealogical Table of the Daughters of Manu. Chapter 2, we just now read about here, what happened in chapter 2, and now it goes we go into chapter 3 when Lord Shiva and Sati talk. And okay, we continued at text 11. I'm sorry for all this skip. So if you want to catch up, or at least you want to read this text, you can do it on your own. Here is, I can show you where you can find it. Here we go, vedabase.io, E-O-I-O. You can find everything there. Alright, so I'm just gonna dive in and start reading. Text 11. Translation. This manifested cosmos is a wonderful creation of the interaction of the 3 material modes, or the external energy of the Supreme Lord. This truth is fully known to you. Yet, I'm but a poor woman, and as you know, I'm not conversant with the truth. Therefore I wish to see my birthplace once more. So this is obviously Sati speaking to Lord Shiva. Let's just, for the sake of, actually, let's just do that. For the sake of context, let's start with how Shiva addresses Sati. So let's just read the translations. Sati said, "My dear Lord Shiva, your father-in-law is now executing great sacrifices, and all the demigods, having been invited by him, are going there. If you desire, we may also go." So she actually wanted to go. "I think that all my sisters must have gone to this great sacrificial ceremony with their husband just to see their relatives. I also desire to decorate myself with the ornaments given to me by my father and go there with you to participate in that assembly." She wanted to socialize. Everyone will be there. It will be a big social gathering, an event. It was a spiritual event. This was a religious event, and also for many, as we can hear here, a social event. And so she continues, "My sisters, my mother's sisters, and their husbands, and other affectionate relatives must be assembled there. So if I go, I shall be able to see them, and I shall be able to see the flapping flags and the performance of the sacrifice by the great sages. For these reasons, my dear husband, I'm very much anxious to go." So we just read this, I'll read again. "This manifested cosmos is a wonderful creation of the interaction of the three material modes, or the external energy of the Supreme Lord. This truth is fully known to you, yet I am but a poor woman, and as you know, I am not conversant with the truth. Therefore I wish to see my birthplace once more." So let's read the purport, what Srila Prabhupada says. Okay, I almost forgot, but I didn't. Let's read the glorification verses before we start actually diving in to Bhagavatam, as it's appropriate to glorify to this scripture. "Sarva shastrabdi piyusham, sarva vedaika satpalam, sarva siddhanta ratnadyam, sarva lokaika drikpradam, sarva bhagavata prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, kalidvanto ditaditya, Shri Krishna parivartita, Paramananda Patnaya Prema Vakshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishna Namostu Me Madhika Bandha Matsangin Madguru Matmahadana Manishtaraka Madbhagya Madananda Namostute Asadu Sadutadayin Atinicho Chataraka Hana Muncha Kadachin Mam Prenahrit Kantayosporam. Translation is, "O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all other worlds. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali, you are the exact image of Shri Krishna. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read, your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone, you are Shri Krishna himself. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love." So this is Mahima Stotra of Srimad Bhagavatam by Sanatana Goswami, where he praises this scripture. And actually, I should be, for everyone who's joining us and it's new or maybe is not aware of Srimad Bhagavatam, maybe I should say a little bit Bhagavad Purana, what it is that we read. So it's Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Purana is the ripe fruit. It's called the ripe fruit of the tree of Vedic literature. And you will see by reading, and there's lots of many acharyas, including Srila Prabhupada talks about Srimad Bhagavatam as being the topmost scripture. of the Bhakti literature. So Srimad Bhagavatam mostly conveys the devotion to Krishna, and it's like the crown jewel of all the Dharma scriptures, Sanatana Dharma scriptures. So there are many stories of devotional service, of incarnations of Lord Vishnu. So Lord Krishna comes in the 10th canto. There's a whole 10th canto, which is the pinnacle of Srimad Bhagavatam, dedicated to Lord Sri Krishna. There's Lord Ram's narration, there's Nrsimhadev narration, and so on. And just a quote from the Bhagavatam itself, and Bhagavatam itself proclaims or declares that that Srimad Bhagavatam is the very essence of the all Vedanta literature. One who has enjoyed the nectar of its rasa never has any desire for anything else. So just a little bit of what we're reading, and there's much more to say about. And so let's go back. Let's go back now to our browser, and let's read the purport of Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So Dakshayani, or Sati, knew very well that her husband, Lord Shiva, was not very much interested in the glaring manifestation of the material world, which is caused by the interaction of the three modes of nature. Therefore, she addressed her husband as Aja, which refers to one who has transcended the bondage of birth and death, or one who has realized his eternal position. She stated, "The illusion of accepting the perverted reflection, the material or cosmic manifestation, to be real is not present in you, because you are self-realized. For you, the attraction of social life and the consideration that someone is father, someone is mother, and someone is sister, which are illusory relationships, is already over. But because I'm a poor woman, I am not so advanced in transcendental realization. Therefore, naturally, this appeared to me as real. Only less," end quote, "only less intelligent persons accept this perverted reflection of the spiritual world to be real. Those who are under the spell of the external energy accept this manifestation to be fact, whereas those who are advanced in spiritual realization know that it is illusion. Actual reality is elsewhere in the spiritual world. But as far as I'm concerned," Sati said, "I do not have much knowledge about self-realization. I am poor because I do not know the actual facts. I am attracted by my birthplace and I want to see it." End quote. One who has attraction for his birthplace, for his body, and for other such items mentioned in the Bhagavatam is considered to be like an ass or a cow. Sati might have heard all this many times for her husband, Lord Shiva, but because she was a woman, Yoshit, she still hankered after the same material objects of affection. The word Yoshit means one who is enjoyed. Therefore, woman is called Yoshit. In spiritual advancement, association with Yoshit is always restricted, because if one is like a play doll in the hands of Yoshit, then all his spiritual advancement is at once stopped. It is said, those who are just like playthings in the hands of woman, Yoshit Krida Mrgeshu, cannot make any advancement in spiritual realization. Okay, there's a warning there. But we need to mention here that Prabhupada, after being questioned about woman being less intelligent, says that those who accept this devotional service, those who accept this spiritual reality, are the same as men. Meaning on the spiritual platform, everyone is the same. there's no difference. Here it just talks about the general propensity, which is stronger in woman to go after material things. Anyway, we will there'll be more explained in purports as we go along by Srila Prabhupada himself. So there's a text 12. O never born, O blue-throated one, not only my relatives but also other women, dressed in nice clothes and decorated with ornaments, are going there with their husbands and friends. Just see how their flocks of white airplanes have made the entire sky very beautiful. Purport. Here Lord Shiva is addressed as Abhava, which means one who is never born, although generally he is known as Bhava, one who is born. Rudra, Lord Shiva, is actually born from between the eyes of Brahma, who is called Swayambhu, because he is not born of any human being or material creature, but is born directly from the lotus flower, which grows from the abdomen of Vishnu. When Lord Shiva is addressed here as Abhava, this may be taken to mean one who has never felt material miseries. Sati wanted to impress upon her husband that even those who were not related to her father were also going, to say nothing of herself, who was intimately related with him. Lord Shiva is addressed here as blue-throated. Lord Shiva drank an ocean of poison and kept it in his throat, not swallowing it or allowing it to go down to his stomach, and thus his throat became blue. Since then he has been known as Nilakanta, or blue-throated. The reason that Lord Shiva drank an ocean of poison was for others' benefit. When the ocean was churned by the demigods and the demons, the churning at first produced poison, so because the poisonous ocean might have affected others who were not so advanced, Lord Shiva drank all the ocean water. In other words, he could drink such a great amount of poison for others' benefit, and now, since his wife was personally requesting him to go to her father's house, even if he did not wish to give that permission, he should do so out of his great kindness. Text 13. O best of the demigods, how can the body of a daughter remain undisturbed when she hears that some festive event is taking place in her father's house? Even though you may be considering that I have not been invited, there is no harm if one goes to the house of one's friend, husband, spiritual master, or father without invitation. 14. O immortal Shiva, please be kind towards me and fulfill my desire. You have accepted me as half of your body. Therefore, please show kindness toward me and accept my request. Text 15. The great sage Maitreya said, Lord Shiva, the deliverer of the hill Kailash, having thus been addressed by his dear wife, replied smilingly, although at the same time he remembered the malicious, heart-piercing speeches delivered by Daksha before the guardians of the universal affairs. Purport. When Lord Shiva heard from his wife about Daksha, the psychological effect was that he immediately remembered the strong words spoken against him in the assembly of the guardians of the universe. And, remembering those words, he was sorry at heart, although to please his wife he smiled. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that a liberated person is always in mental equilibrium in both the distress and the happiness of this material world. Therefore the question may now be raised. Why a liberated personality like Lord Shiva was so unhappy because of the words of Daksha? The answer is given by Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur. Lord Shiva is Atmarama, or situated in complete self-realization, but because he is the incarnation in charge of the material mode of ignorance, Tamaguna, he is sometimes affected by the pleasure and pain of the material world. The difference between the pleasure and pain of this material world and that of the spiritual world is that in the spiritual world the effect is qualitatively absolute. Therefore one may feel sorry in the absolute world, but the manifestation of so-called pain is always full of bliss. For instance, once Lord Krishna in his childhood was chastised by his mother Yashoda, and Lord Krishna cried. But although he shed tears from his eyes, this is not to be considered a reaction of the mode of ignorance, for the incident was full of transcendental pleasure. When Krishna was playing in so many ways, sometimes it appeared that he caused distress to the gopis, but actually such dealings were full of transcendental bliss. That is the difference between the material and spiritual worlds. The spiritual world, where everything is pure, is pervertedly reflected in this material world. Since everything in the spiritual world is absolute, in the spiritual varieties of apparent pleasure and pain, there is no perception other than eternal bliss, whereas in the material world, because everything is contaminated by the modes of material nature, there are feelings of pleasure and pain. Therefore, because Lord Shiva, although a fully self-realized person, was in charge of the material mode of ignorance, he felt sorrow. Text 16. Okay. So now, Shri Bhagavan it starts the Sanskrit. In this case, that's Shiva. The great Lord replied, "My dear beautiful wife, you have said that one may go to a friend's house without being invited, and this is true, provided such a friend does not find fault with a guest because of bodily identification and thereby become angry towards him." Purport. Lord Shiva could foresee that as soon as Sati reached her father's house, her father, Daksha, being too puffed up because of bodily identification, would be angry at her presence, and although she was innocent and faultless, he would be mercilessly angry towards her. Lord Shiva warned that since her father was too puffed up by his material possessions, he would be angry, and this would be intolerable for her. Therefore, it was better that she not go. This fact was already experienced by Lord Shiva, because although Lord Shiva was faultless, Daksha had cursed him in so many harsh words. Text 17. Although the 6 qualities, education, austerity, wealth, beauty, youth, and heritage, are for the highly elevated, one who is proud of possessing them becomes blind, and thus he loses his good sense and cannot appreciate the glories of great personalities. Well, see, there's the pride makes one blind. Purport. It may be argued that since Daksha was very learned, wealthy and austere, and had descended from a very exalted heritage, how could he be unnecessarily angry towards another? The answer is that when the qualities of good education, good parentage, beauty, and sufficient wealth are misplaced in a person who is puffed up by all these possessions, they produce a very bad result. Milk is a very nice food, but when milk is touched by an envious serpent, it becomes poisonous. Similarly, material assets such as education, wealth, beauty, and good parentage are undoubtedly nice, but when they decorate persons of a malicious nature, then they act adversely. Another example given by Chanakya Pandit is that a serpent that has a jewel on its head is still fearful because it is a serpent. A serpent by nature is envious of other living entities, even though they be faultless. When a serpent bites another creature, it is not necessarily because the other creature is at fault. It is the habit of the serpent to bite innocent creatures. Similarly, although Daksha was qualified by many material assets because he was proud of his possessions and because he was envious, all those qualities were polluted. It is therefore sometimes detrimental for a person advancing in spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness to possess such material assets. Kunti Devi, while offering prayers to Krishna, addressed him as Akinchana Gochara, one who is easily approached by those who are bereft of all material acquisitions. Material exhaustion is an advantage for advancement in Krishna consciousness Although if one is conscious of his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can utilize one's material assets such as great learning and beauty and exalted ancestry for the service of the Lord. Then such assets become glorious. In other words, unless one is Krishna conscious, all his material possessions are zero. But when this zero is by the side of the Supreme One, it at once increases in value to 10. Unless situated by the side of the Supreme One, zero is always zero. One may add 100 zeros, but the value will still remain zero. Unless one's material assets are used in Krishna consciousness, they may play havoc and degrade the possessor. But this example is so strikingly simple, but it's so, this mathematical example. Then you can add so many zeros, but the real value is only when you add the one, which is Krishna, which is the Supreme, the God. Okay, let's continue. Let me know if you feel tired. You can have some break. You can do some chanting or listen to some bhajan. No, just kidding. We'll be reading it, but please let me know in what format, if you like it, if you would like to, especially if you'd like to join me actually in Zoom. I'm actually thinking of from maybe tomorrow or from next week to start a Zoom group, so you can also we can also see each other. Well, I can see you. You see me properly, which would be nice. So I can I read to someone, not to myself only. Okay. Hare Krishna. Let's go on. Chapter 18. Sorry. Chapter 3, verse 18. Shiva still speaking. One should not go to anyone's house, even on the consideration of his being a relative or a friend, when the man is disturbed in his mind and looks upon the guest with raised eyebrows and angry eyes. Purport. However low a person may be, he is never unkind to his children, wife, or nearest kin. Even a tiger is kind to its cubs, for within the animal kingdom the cubs are treated very nicely. Since Sati was the daughter of Daksha, however cruel and contaminated he may be, naturally it was expected that he would receive her very nicely. But here it is indicated by the word anavashtita, that such a person cannot be trusted. Tigers are very kind to their cubs, but it is also known that sometimes they eat them. Malicious persons should not be trusted, because they are always unsteady. The Sati was advised not to go to her father's house because to accept such a father as a relative and to go to his house without being properly invited was not suitable. Text 19. Lord Shiva continued. If one is hurt by the arrows of an enemy, one is not as aggrieved as when cut by the unkind words of a relative. For such grief continues to rend one's heart day and night. To rend one's heart like disturb or yeah. Purport. Sati might have concluded that she would take the risk of going to her father's house, and even if her father spoke unkindly against her, she would be tolerant, as a son sometimes tolerates the reproaches of his parents. But Lord Shiva reminded her that she would not be able to tolerate such unkind words because naturally, psychologically, dictates that although one can suffer harm from an enemy and not mind so much because pain inflicted by an enemy is natural, when one is hurt by the strong words of a relative, one suffers the effects continually, day and night, and sometimes the injury becomes so intolerable that one commits suicide. Unfortunately, that is happening, and it still is up to this day. Text 20. My dear white-complexioned wife, it is clear that of the many daughters of Daksha, you are the pet, yet you will not be honored at his house because of your being my wife. Rather, you will be sorry that you are connected with me. Purport. Lord Shiva put forward the argument that even if Sati proposed to go alone without her husband, still she would not be received well because she was his wife. There was every chance of a catastrophe, even if she wanted to go alone. Therefore, Lord Shiva indirectly requested her not to go to her father's house. Text 21. One who is conducted by false ego and does always distress, both mentally and sensually, cannot tolerate the opulence of self-realized persons. Being unable to rise to the standard of self-realization, he envies such persons as much as demons envy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The real reason for the enmity between Lord Shiva and Daksha is explained here. Daksha was envious of Lord Shiva because of Shiva's high position as an incarnation of equality of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and because Shiva was directly in contact with the Supersoul and was therefore honored and given a better sitting place than he. There were many other reasons also. Daksha, being materially puffed up, could not tolerate the high position of Lord Shiva, so his anger at Lord Shiva's not standing up in his presence was only the final manifestation of his envy. Lord Shiva is always in meditation and always perceives the Supersoul as expressed here by the words Purusha Buddhi Sakshinam. The position of one whose intelligence is always absorbed in meditation upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very great and cannot be imitated by anyone, especially by an ordinary person. When Daksha entered the arena of Yagya, Lord Shiva was in meditation and might not have seen Daksha enter, but Daksha took the opportunity to curse him because Daksha had maintained an envious attitude towards Lord Shiva for a long time. Those who are actually self-realized see every individual body as a temple of the Supreme Personality of Godhead because the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Paramatma feature is residing in everyone's body. When one offers respect to the body, it is not to the material body, but to the presence of the Supreme Lord. Thus one who is always in meditation upon the Supreme Lord is always offering him obeisances. But since Daksha was not very elevated, he thought that obeisances were offered to the material body, and because Lord Shiva did not offer respect to his material body, Daksha became envious. Such persons, being unable to rise to the standard of self-realized souls like Lord Shiva, are always envious. The example given here is very suitable. Asuras, demons or atheists, are always envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They simply want to kill him. Even in this age, we find some so-called scholars commenting on Bhagavad Gita who are envious of Krishna. When Krishna says, Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto, always think of me, become my devotee and surrender unto me, the so-called scholars comment that it is not to Krishna that we have to surrender. That is envy. The asuras or atheists, the demons, without reason or cause, are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, instead of offering respect to self-realized persons, foolish men who cannot approach the highest standard of self-realization are always envious, although there is no reason. Yeah. Okay. We are text 22. Shiva still speaking. My dear young wife, certainly friends and relatives offer mutual greetings by standing up, welcoming one another, and offering obeisances. But those who are elevated to the transcendental platform, being intelligent, offer such respect to the supersoul who is sitting within the body, not to the person who identifies with the body. Purport. It may be argued that since Daksha was the father-in-law of Lord Shiva, it was certainly the duty of Lord Shiva to offer him respect. In answer to that argument, it is explained here that when a learned person stands up or offers obeisances in welcome, he offers respect to the supersoul who is sitting within everyone's heart. Among Vaishnavas, therefore, it is seen that even when a disciple offers obeisances to his spiritual master, the spiritual master immediately returns the obeisances because they are mutually offered not to the body but to the supersoul. Therefore, the spiritual master also offers respect to the supersoul situated in the body of the disciple. The Lord says in Srimad Bhagavatam that offering respect to his devotee is more valuable than offering respect to him. Devotees do not identify with the body, so offering respect to a Vaishnava means offering respect to Vishnu. It is stated also that, as a matter of etiquette, as soon as one sees a Vaishnava, one must immediately offer him respect, indicating the supersoul sitting within. A Vaishnava sees the body as a temple of Vishnu. Since Lord Shiva had already offered respect to the supersoul in Krishna consciousness, offering respect to Daksha, who identified with his body, was already performed. There was no need to offer respect to his body, for that is not directed by any Vedic injunction. Text 23. I am always engaged in offering obeisances to Lord Vasudeva in pure Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is always pure consciousness, in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Vasudeva, is revealed without any covering. Purport. The living entity is constitutionally pure, asango hyanam purushaha. In the Vedic literature it is said that the soul is always pure and uncontaminated by material attachment. The identification of the body with the soul is due to misunderstanding. As soon as one is fully Krishna conscious, it is to be understood that one is in his pure, original constitutional position. This state of existence is called Shuddha Sattva, which means that it is transcendental to the material qualities. Since this Shuddha Sattva existence is under the direct action of the internal potency, in this state the activities of material consciousness stop. For example, when iron is put into a fire, it becomes warm, and when red hot, although it is iron, it acts like fire. So if you touch it, you'll get burned. Similarly, when copper is surcharged with electricity, its action as copper stops. It acts as electricity. Bhagavad Gita 14.26 also confirms that anyone who engages in unadulterated devotional service to the Lord is at once elevated to the position of pure Brahman. Mam cha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Therefore, Shuddha Sattva, as described in this verse, is the transcendental position, which is technically called Vasudeva. Vasudeva is also the name of the person from whom Krishna appears. This verse explains that the pure state is called Vasudeva because in that state, Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is revealed without any covering. To execute unadulterated devotional service, therefore, one must follow the rules and regulations of devotional service without desire to gain material profit by fruitive activities or mental speculation. In pure devotional service, one simply serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a matter of duty, without reason and without being impeded by material conditions. That is called Shuddha Sattva or Vasudeva, because in that stage, the Supreme Person, Krishna, is revealed in the heart of the devotee. Srila Jiva Goswami has very nicely described this Vasudeva or Shuddha Sattva in his Bhagavad Sandarbha. He explains that Ashtotara Shata, 108, is added to the name of the spiritual master to indicate one who is situated in Shuddha Sattva or in the transcendental state of Vasudeva. The word Vasudeva is also used for other purposes. For example, Vasudeva also means one who is everywhere or all-pervading. The sun is also called Vasudeva Shabditam. The word Vasudeva may be utilized for different purposes, but whatever purpose we adopt, Vasudeva means the all-pervading or localized Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita 7.19, it is also stated, Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. Factual realization is to understand Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and surrender unto Him. Vasudeva is the ground wherein Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is revealed. I hope I'm saying this right, that it's distinguishable. Vasudeva and Vasudeva. Anyway, you can also see it here. It's spelled differently with a that it's long. With this line on top, it means it's pronounced long, and it's a different word. Vasudeva is the ground wherein Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is revealed. So the pure state of Shuddha Sattva, of Sattva Guna, is there where the God, Supreme Personality of Godhead, is revealed. But for that, we need to first develop Sattva Guna, or the state of mode of goodness, and from that state then we can continue or then reach Shuddha Sattva, or the pure state, without any Raja Tamas. So Sattva Gun would be mixed. So whenever we say someone or something is Sattva Gun, Raja Gun, Tama Gun, it's not we don't mean it's pure, it's not 100%. It's always a mixture, so it's just like a predominance, or the majority of it is Sattva Guna. If something is Sattva Guna, there's always a tinge. So when we say Shuddha Sattva, means complete, without any Rajaguna, Tamaguna, complete goodness or pure goodness. Okay, where have we stopped? Here. When one is free from the contamination of material nature and is situated in pure Krishna consciousness or in the Vasudeva state, Vasudeva, the Supreme Person, is revealed. This state is also called Kaivalya. There you go. Which means pure consciousness. Jnanam Satikam Kaivalyam. When one is situated in pure transcendental knowledge, one is situated in Kaivalya. Therefore, Vasudeva also means Kaivalya, a word which is generally used by impersonalists. I was just about to say that. Impersonal Kaivalya is not the last stage of realization. In Krishna consciousness Kaivalya, when one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one is successful. In that pure state, by hearing, chanting, remembering, etc., because of the development of knowledge of the science of Krishna, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All these activities are under the guidance of the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. The action of the internal potency is also described in this verse as apavrita, free from any covering, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, His name, His form, His quality, His paraphernalia, etc., being transcendental, are beyond material nature. It is not possible to understand any one of them with the materialistic senses. When the senses are purified by the discharge of pure devotional service, Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchyate, the pure senses can see Krishna without covering. Now one may inquire that since factually the devotee has the same material existential body, how is it possible that the same materialistic eyes become purified by devotional service? The example, as stated by Lord Chaitanya, is that devotional service cleanses the mirror of the mind. In a clean mirror, one can see one's face very distinctly. Similarly, simply by cleansing the mirror of the mind, one can have a clear conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita 8.8, Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena, by executing one's prescribed duties in devotional service, Chetasa Nanya Gamina, or simply by hearing about God and chanting about Him. If one's mind is always engaged in chanting and hearing, and is not allowed to go elsewhere, one can realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed by Lord Chaitanya, by the Bhakti Yoga process, beginning from hearing and chanting, one can cleanse the heart and mind, and thus one can clearly see the face of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can see God face to face. I have to remember that's one of the first emails I sent to the first Iskcon temple that I was trying to go. Develop some understanding and of spirit, some idea of spirituality, of spiritual life, of God, or and I remember in that email I said I want to see God face to face. And the temple president Gopalachara Prabhu then welcomed me to Inishrat nicely for the first 2 weeks there. That was 2013. Okay, enough of my little story. Let's continue. Let's finish this purport, and then it will be 7, so I'll stop then. Okay, Lord Shiva said that since his heart was always filled with the conception of Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of the Supreme Lord's presence within his mind and heart, he was always offering obeisances unto that Supreme Godhead. In other words, Lord Shiva is always in trance, samadhi. This samadhi is not under the control of the devotee. It is under the control of Vasudeva, for the entire internal energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead acts under his order. Of course, the material energy also acts by his order, but his direct will is specifically executed through the spiritual energy. Thus, by his spiritual energy, he reveals himself. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita, Sambhyavami Atmamaya. Atmamaya means internal potency. By his sweet will, he reveals himself by his internal potency, being satisfied by the transcendental loving service. By transcendental, loving service of the devotee. The devotee never commands, "My dear Lord, please come here so that I can see you." It is not the position of the devotee to command the Supreme Personality of Godhead to come before him or to dance before him. There are so many so-called devotees who command the Lord to come before them dancing. The Lord, however, is not subject to anyone's command, but if he is satisfied, so that is here you go. It's he is satisfied by one's pure devotional activities. He reveals himself. You can just go and copy this to your notebook. Maybe I'll copy it. Actually, I should copy it. There we go. I'm copying it now. I'm copying the whole sentence. And I create here my notes. And your note. Sorry for that, you don't hear. You don't see what I'm doing. I'm just copying this sentence. Therefore, a meaningful word in this verse is adokshaja, for it indicates that the activities of our material senses will fail to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One cannot realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply by the attempt of one's speculative mind. But if one desires, he can subdue all the material activities of his senses, and the Lord, by manifesting his spiritual energy, can reveal himself to the pure devotee. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead reveals himself to the pure devotee, the devotee has no other duty than to offer him respectful obeisances. The Absolute Truth reveals himself to the devotee in his form. He is not formless. Vasudeva is not formless, for it is stated in this verse that as soon as the Lord reveals himself, the devotee offers his obeisances. Obeisances are offered to a person, not to anything impersonal. One should not accept the Mayavada interpretation that Vasudeva is impersonal. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, prapadyate, one surrenders. One surrenders to a person, not to impersonal non-duality. Whenever there is a question of surrendering or offering obeisances, there must be an object of surrender or obeisances. So we reached 7 o'clock and we're going to conclude today's reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, the first one of that since we restarted today. We are continuing reading every Monday, 6 o'clock, every Tuesday, 6 o'clock, Srimad Bhagavatam, the ripened fruit of Vedic tree of knowledge, Vedic tree of knowledge. Yeah, please join here. And again, repeating myself, please let me know if you would like to see a Zoom group or any other group or a Skype group or something where we can read together, or we might even hand it over to any of you who would like to read. We can do it together. It's fun, little bit more dynamic, interesting. Hope did you follow it, didn't doze off. If don't worry if you didn't catch everything. I didn't catch everything myself. I'm not so worried. I did catch few things, so it's important to read and read and read and read. It's also important to study it. So here we're just reading today. It's not a study group or class where someone is explaining. But any questions, sure, you can post them, and maybe someone or me, let's see if someone is depending on question can intensity of question or the depth of the question can answer. I thank also to Manu Prabhu, who encouraged me to restart this reading again. So yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Manu Prabhu. Thank you everyone for joining, and see us or see me. Let's continue tomorrow at 6. Hare Krishna, Hari Bol.